Another update in the Karmelo Anthony situation. And again, shout out to the quartering for this video. Obviously, I'm going to put music behind this and everything just to make sure that we steer clear. But the title of the video is Karmelo Anthony may walk. Huge decision in charges and media vilifies Austin Metcalf supporters. And away we go. So again, shout out to the quartering. Shout out to the quartering for doing this video, and away we go.
Anthony's indictment. Now, a lot of people... What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the quartering, and we've got some new information on Karmelo Anthony's indictment. Now, a lot of people know, hey, he's been charged with X, Y, and Z, which we're going to talk about, but the indictment via grand jury is really where the rubber meets the road. It's
Philly says, excuse me, please. Hello, sir. See, there you go. That's one of the few situations I'm wrong. It is what it is.
What he's going to have to face in court. And if you're like me, you are not optimistic that he's going to get the correct charge. All signs point to him getting off easy. And I'm just preparing myself for the worst.
Now, this is the thing. This is the thing. And I've said many, many, many times before that there is a world where Karmelo Anthony is acquitted. Not because he's not guilty, not because he's innocent, but because of the potential political backlash, right? If Karmelo Anthony is convicted of first-degree murder, I fully expect niggas to loot and destroy their cities, as niggas often do when shit doesn't go their way. This is just how it works. If this doesn't go the niggas' way, and niggas want Karmelo Anthony to get away with first-degree murder, my guess is that they're probably going to go crazy. So if he's charged with man 1, murder 2, whatever the case may be, I know that is going to be. If he's not charged with murder 1, if he is not indicted for murder in the first degree, niggas are going to take that as a win. They'll be like, see, it wasn't first-degree murder. Just because he's not indicted for first-degree murder doesn't mean he didn't commit first-degree murder and was. And it's funny, niggas talk all the time about how the justice system is flawed and this and that and the third, yet when a nigga gets in trouble and does some nigga shit and he ends up being undercharged, now all of a sudden they have this belief in the justice system. Justice for Karmelo. King Life has always maintained that murder 2 is perfect. And you want to know something? I think it'll be a lot easier to prove murder 2 than murder 1. Either way, Karmelo Anthony is cooked if the grand jury does not undercharge him. Let's continue.
On top of that, The Guardian put out an insane article today, whining and complaining that everybody else was able to raise money, but they had no problem with Karmelo Anthony, who definitely raised all of his money based on hatred of one particular group of people, and that
white people.
That is,
white people,
white folks, and it's never been more obvious. My German Shepherd alarm is now going off, but let's continue with the video.
This is German Shepherd, right? Hey, shout out to the German Shepherd in the house.
I want to let everyone know. I want to thank everyone who has picked up or pre-ordered their Mega Mixology cookbook, which is 100 pages of meme-tastic. I got tailed that Karmelo Anthony will be indicted next week. I highly suspect it will be next week, Friday, because they're going to want to minimize press coverage.
The media. Yes. This is why companies fire people on Fridays, so that they have the weekend to sort of accept it, stew on it. Hopefully they're cooled off by Monday. Big stories that they don't want a bunch of media coverage on, they tend to release them on Friday. So yeah, Karmelo Anthony will likely be indicted next Friday.
I mean, if it's on Monday or Tuesday, for example,
oh God,
maybe that
I hope he's indicted on a Monday or Tuesday. That'd be great, but I don't think they're going to do that.
Means that he will get the appropriate charge. But if they wait till Friday, that's going to mean they're going to let him off with an easier charge.
Ooh, now that is very interesting. That is very interesting. I had not thought of that angle. If they indict him on a Monday or a Tuesday, chances are it's probably going to be murder 1. If they indict him, if they make the announcement, if they indict him on a Friday, then it's probably somewhere in the murder to manslaughter area. Very good point.
That's what I suspect. Now, many of you may not be totally familiar. What are the charges that he's actually facing? We all know that he confessed to the incident and he quickly said it was self-defense. However, nobody believes that. No evidence exists to support that. And I think it's all, leave a like on the video right now if you believe that if there was any evidence whatsoever to smear Austin Metcalf or to lionize Karmelo Anthony as some sort of self-defense hero, we would have seen it weeks ago.
There you go. Let me rewind that because this is very, very, very important. Listen very closely.
Appropriate charge, but if they wait till Friday, that's going to mean they're going to let him off with an easier charge. That's what I suspect. Now, many of you may not be totally familiar. What are the charges that he's actually facing? We all know that he confessed to the incident and he quickly said it was self-defense. However, nobody believes that. No evidence exists to support that.
Nobody believes this, guys. Not even niggas. Niggas don't believe it was self-defense. They're telling us they believe it's self-defense to give themselves a justification to proclaim his innocence or his lack of guilt. But niggas know that this was not self-defense. They know this wasn't self-defense. They're making us think that they think it's self-defense because they want him to get off. Guys, this is what we call arguing in bad faith. Arguing one position because of a supposed reason when it's really about something else.
And I think it's all, leave a like on the video right now if you believe that if there was any evidence whatsoever to smear Austin Metcalf or to lionize Karmelo Anthony as some sort of self-defense hero, we would have seen it weeks ago.
Absolutely. If Austin Metcalf were this bully, like niggas claim that he was, if Austin Metcalf were this deviant, if he were this bad guy, if there were anything salacious that would indicate that Austin Metcalf is a racist or he's a white supremacist or any of that or anything that would justify Karmelo stabbing Austin Metcalf in the chest, that would have come out weeks ago. But it doesn't exist. That's why nobody has found it yet, because you best believe niggas have been looking. They can't find anything.
Well, he is facing first-degree murder charges in Texas. He is being prosecuted as an adult under the state's concurrent jurisdiction laws, which allows prosecutors to charge minors as adults without judicial oversight.
Good.
Anthony is accused, of course, of taking Austin Metcalf's life, something he admitted to. He was initially held in jail, but was later released to house arrest with an ankle monitor with conditions including supervision and restrictions on his social media and contact with the victim's family. His lawyer plans to plead not guilty and argue self-defense. Now, I think it's also important to pull up the difference between charges and indictment, because this is important. This is why this video is important.
Right. And being charged with a crime, listen, if you're charged with first-degree murder, listen, that's going to keep you up at night, right? But what really counts is the indictment, okay? What really counts is the indictment. The indictment is handed down from the grand jury, which consists of 23 people. They look at the evidence, and they decide what to formally indict the alleged criminal with.
Now, criminal law, a charge is a formal accusation that the person has committed a crime, typically issued by a local prosecutor. However, an indictment,
the DA,
on the other hand, is a formal accusation issued by the grand jury.
I like that. I actually like that. I've never heard it explained like that before, but that makes perfect sense. When you are arrested and charged by the DA for XYZ crime, okay, that is sort of an informal accusation. You have been charged with first-degree murder. And this is what we call due process. The DA takes a look at the evidence. They look at what the cops and the detectives have, what information they gathered. Then they send it over to a second set of eyes, those 23 people on the grand jury, to look over the evidence. Okay? So when you are arrested and charged, that's sort of informal. Look, listen, you stand accused of first-degree murder. We'll get back with you with the official charges.
After reviewing all the evidence, essentially both are accusations, but an indictment is specifically a grand jury's determination of a probable cause, while the charge can be filed by a prosecutor without grand jury involvement. Meaning, the actual indictment could be very different than the initial charge. We know he's charged with manslaughter, but after a grand jury looks at it, it could be reduced to, or I'm sorry, first degree murder, but it could be reduced to manslaughter.
Yep.
It could even be dropped. It could be.
Yes. Yes, it absolutely could be dropped. It absolutely could be dropped. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because I think the grand jury, like the OJ jury and OJ grand jury, I think, well, like the OJ jury, not the grand jury, but I think the grand jury, like most people in America, they are well aware of the political and societal ramifications of dropping these charges. Carmelo Anthony, listen, nobody is dropping charges. It could happen. I mean, listen, it could happen. I'm not going to sit here and say that it won't happen. It could, but I seriously doubt it.
Reduced to some sort of, much lesser charge. And that's the difference. Now, there's a lower standard of evidence in terms of an initial charge. The indictment typically involves a prosecutor filing the document or charge, but an indictment is a grand jury or a group of citizens convened to review all the evidence in the case, decide if there's probable cause to proceed with a criminal case. So, just to be clear, Carmelo Anthony's charges could still be dropped. The grand jury could very easily decide, we think that it's self-defense, and he could walk free. That's why this is this important. That's why the grand jury convening over this is as important as it is. He could still walk free. He could get a bigger charge, a more escalating charge. Maybe the grand jury sees the evidence and they see that it's premeditated. The initial charge is, while it has some meaning, the indictment is what really matters, because the standard of proof requires a much higher standard of evidence and also generally probable cause. So a prosecutor presents evidence to the grand jury, and then if the grand jury believes there's sufficient evidence, they issue that indictment, and at that point, the trial can move forward. So this is something very, very different, and Carmelo Anthony could still walk free.
Yes, he could.
And
I don't think he will, but he certainly could.
I've been reporting.
El Coro says, is Carmelo allowed to leave the state? Apparently, he has already left the state, and evidently, the judge is what allowed him to leave the state. He is now, according to reports, he is now in the state of Louisiana. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how this was allowed to happen, but it happened. He is now in Louisiana.
Reporting on this, I try to not be a doom and gloom guy on the channel. I mean, heck, I make a meme cookbook, but just everything we've seen, not just in how we see Derek Chauvin, how Kyle Rittenhouse, how Daniel Penny, all these situations were reversed. All of them had to go through lengthy trials and face significant charges and throw their fate up to the jury. There's really no doubt that Carmelo Anthony did this. He brought the weapon with him. He admitted to doing it. Now we know that journalists and local reporters have viewed the security footage and say that there absolutely was not a fight that led to this incident. So I don't know. Also, we see this article from The Guardian, which is a far leftoid BLM woke rag outlet, now saying go viral for racist behavior. Receives $750,000. There's a brand new article came out today inside the new extremist crowdfunding campaigns.
Jason Bernardino says he's not going back to Texas. He's going to have to at some point. He's going to have to go back to Texas to stand trial.
This is an article solely smeared at anybody who decides or needs to raise money in their defense when the races are reversed. When a white person suffers an attack at the hands of a black person, The Guardian says that you are signaling supremacists. I'm not kidding you. There's a lot in this article, but I want to start with this section down below. Because they're basically...
Emo Muzz accurately pointing out one of the most important elements of the Miranda right when they tell you that everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. This is why they tell you you have the right to remain silent. In other words, you have a right to shut the fuck up. Invoke your Fifth Amendment right to not say anything to incriminate yourself.
Basically saying that Karmelo Anthony started all of this, but he was a good boy who didn't do nothing wrong. Here we have...
Yeah, that's not the case.
I wanted to find...
Protect our baby. Carmelo ain't no baby. That nigga is not no baby. That's a spoiled ass nigga who's going to, well, who could go to prison.
Find this. Where is it? There we go. They talk about Shiloh Hendricks, who raised a bunch of money after going viral for saying the N-word. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's a viable business plan. I don't have any issue with people that donated her money, but I'm not going to pretend that there wasn't a racial motivation there. My issue is that the newspaper, these journalists, are completely ignoring the reason why Carmelo Anthony raised as much money as he did.
And by the way, this is where the Carmelo Anthony Give, Send, Go is at right now. It's slowed down a little bit. He's up to $536,000, a little over $536,000. But you have noticed, if you have noticed, they have increased that goal to $600,000. And when and if they get to $600,000, they'll probably raise it to $700,000, and so on and so forth.
If you just read the comments, there were black folks in those comments, presumably, celebrating what Karmelo did. Saying that Austin Metcalf deserved it. There were
Listen, there were black folks celebrating on the Give, Send, Go. There are black folks on the internet celebrating what Carmelo Anthony did. I listened to Jason Whitlock. He went to go see the movie Sinners. And when one of the black actors stabbed one of the white vampires in the heart with a stake, Jason Whitlock said the crowd erupted. That's not a coincidence. They erupted to show their disdain for Austin Metcalf. The reason why it exploded, the reason why the theater exploded is because niggas are telling the world, not even indirectly, straight up, yeah, we endorse blacks killing whites. This is it. This is what this is what we endorse. This is what we endorse.
There was absolutely positively the same racial motivation behind the Carmelo Anthony case, fundraising. But this article said, well, it was different with him. It was just all good people who wanted to do good things. You see this? They're talking about Shiloh Hendricks. Hendricks' crowdfund came after the viral fundraising campaign for Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, look, the Shiloh Hendricks donations came in direct response to the Carmelo Anthony donations. People who are donating to Carmelo Anthony are racist. People who donated to Shiloh Hendricks are also racist.
On the same platform, they're talking about Give, Send, Go. Anthony, a black teenager from Frisco, Texas, allegedly took the life of Austin.
He didn't allegedly do anything. He admitted it. The cop was on the he was on the radio. Yeah, he allegedly stabbed another kid. Carmelo's, oh no, there's no alleged. I did it. You want to know something? I think that he did that on purpose to get street cred. I think he did that on purpose just to get street head. Oh, Jesus Christ. Do not get head on the street, guys. That is... I've had road head. I've never had street head. Getting head out in the street. Definitely don't do that. But just to get a little bit more street cred when and if he does get acquitted. Yeah, I told that cop I didn't allegedly did it. I stabbed that white boy. Remember Beans, dumbass? He said he didn't say, yeah, I did it. Doesn't matter how he said he did it. The nigga admitted to it. He said, nope, it's no alleged. I did it. And I think Carmelo Anthony said that. I think he said that so that he could get street cred when and if he is acquitted for this.
To Metcalf, a white teenager from a rival school during a track meet. Again, this is not alleged. He admitted to it. There is no allegedly here. Of course, then they say white supremacists encourage people to donate to Hendricks funds as a rebuttal to the money raised for Anthony's legal defense fund, which Dwyer said probably boosted the campaign's success. Again, no race fueling, no race nonsense. In Carmelo Anthony's case, he was a good boy that didn't do anything wrong. But everybody who donated money to Shiloh, for example, they're evil supremacists. Hendricks's video also served as a form of recruitment and camaraderie for folks who have bigoted views, but are not yet white supremacists. Got in front of millions and millions of eyes. It drove donors that might not necessarily be hardcore white supremacists, but in their eyes, they don't see what she did as a problem. I don't either. She's allowed to say what she wants. You know, I didn't donate money, but I don't care if other people donated money. This same article, or this same news outlet, The Guardian, published exactly 0 articles condemning all of the hate, the white hatred in Carmelo Anthony's fundraiser. As far as I know, not a single mainstream media outlet, which, you know, I'm talking ABC, NBC, The Guardian, Daily Beast, all these left-leaning outlets, not a single one of them published an article condemning the wild anti-white comments in Carmelo Anthony's fundraiser.
There you go.
People are voting with their views and their dollar. For a lot of people, it might be their first action outside of posting to social media to push their views and make a donation.
There you go.
Again, were all the people that donated to Carmelo Anthony pushing their views? Well, no. No. Everyone that donated to him and said, you know, destroy Whitey.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That is exactly what niggas are doing. Niggas are behind Carmelo Anthony. They like the fact that a black person killed a white person. They like this. They've openly celebrated it. They like the fact that Austin Metcalf is dead. They are not mourning his death. To black people, Black Lives Matter and only Black Lives Matter. We say all lives matter. No, Black people don't think all lives matter. Black people do not think all lives matter. Black people only think Black Lives Matter.
They were good boys. The latest incident represents a sharp contrast to how the public reacted to racist incidents just a few years ago with the launch of the BLM scam. Many white people began facing public outrage over problematic behavior, including the harassment of black people in public spaces. I don't see a lot of that. Are we saying that George Floyd was not a criminal and not committing a crime?
If you let niggas
Now,
tell it.
of course, there are Karens who, you know, there are these old white ladies.
Sean Springer says OJ all over again. I totally agree. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if Carmelo is either undercharged or acquitted or some combination of both. Straight up. I would not be surprised.
That are like, heavens to Murgatroyd, a white person or a black person doing nothing wrong at all. I'm going to have a meltdown. There's like 1 to every 100,000 situations that it gets reversed. How many white people are, you know, on the receiving end of black crime or, you know,
more than the opposite? That's for goddamn sure.
Bad behavior, but nobody ever says anything. The bottom of the line is there's bad people on all sides, but the media only reports one. You know, they destroy these white people's lives if they have a Karen moment. But when black folks do it, they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in fundraisers and say that they're oppressed. And of course, you have The Guardian excusing and hand-waving all of it. I hope you're informed by this video. Hopefully, we get the appropriate indictment on Carmelo Anthony next week. Make sure you subscribe or follow down below. Keep it locked in here because the minute we get the news, I will report it. It may still come out this week.
Okay, so all indications are that Carmelo Anthony is likely going to be charged probably a week from tomorrow, or indicted probably a week from tomorrow. And just like the quartering said, the reason that if they do it on a Friday, it's probably because he'll likely be undercharged. If they do it during the week, he'll probably be charged with murder 1. You guys know how that goes. So stay tuned. We will continue with the updates as they come in. And that's the memo on